Put this up. Booyah!
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our program tonight. And we are back in session. Good
Hello,
evening. Good
hello.
evening, everybody. Welcome to Faith Filled Moms to another Mom's Night In. Obviously, I am not Tanya May Ethan.
But you good girl. You good girl.
Oh,
Stop
Lordy.
playing.
But I'm your host for tonight,
Say it with your
Shira.
chest, Shira.
I work
Say
in
it
the
with your chest.
background. Oh my gosh. And of course, we all know Markeisha, our lovely IT specialist out here, and she's going to be hanging out with me tonight as we talk to a faith-filled mom favorite, an alumni. Danine, we're so happy to have you back.
We just
Uh,
brought her right on now. We just
and
brought her right on now.
that's how we do
Um,
things here.
Listen, so where are you coming from? Please let
Yes.
us know in the comments who was there. I see Nicole. Hey Nicole, girl
Hi.
side girl. What you doing? And Carmen. Carmen,
Hey, Carmen.
love you.
We
Love
love you.
you.
Continuing to pray for you, love.
Absolutely.
So we are so happy to have everybody tuning in tonight, and it's going to be another amazing conversation, another encouraging and ministering conversation for this our October series,
Mm-hmm.
um, and this series is focused on survivors and those who have experienced different forms of abuse. So we thank God for our first faith-filled mom last week who presented faith and her telling her story and the strength and the courage that it took to share. So we're so grateful that Faith shared her story with us. And tonight
Yes.
we are looking forward to how God is going to come right through and sit right in on the conversation with us as Danine shares. So, of course, we want to give a disclaimer because this is an extremely sensitive topic. So, this is a topic of a sensitive nature relating to physical, sexual, mental, and/or emotional abuse and trauma, and that's what we'll be discussing this series. So, viewer discretion is advised. Um, so again, we're grateful for all of the moms. We have specialists coming on at the end of the month. We're just grateful for everybody who consented to be a part of this series and share their story, their journey, their expertise. And we're just looking for God to do something amazing as He continuously does. Um, we invite the audience to please share. If you know anyone who would be blessed by this series, anyone who may have a story or have experienced abuse and you just want to send them encouragement, we invite you to share this with them. And we're going to get right into it. So, Danine, so happy to have you.
Thank you.
And like we
Thank
said,
you for
you
inviting
are an alum. Yes, happy that
me.
you're back. You
Mhm.
are an alum, but for those who might not know you, those who might be meeting you for the first time, please share a little bit about yourself, your family, and just a disclaimer. I know she's going to say it, but Danine is one of my fellow autism moms, so
And she is my line sister.
look at you,
I was
just
just gonna
connecting,
say.
connecting everywhere.
Alumni chapter, Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated.
Right. So Markeisha and I are line sisters, and yes, Shira and I are both autism moms. But yes, I'm Danine Huff Romero, and I'm a mother of two young children.
Mhm.
I have a daughter who is 7 and a son who is 11 years old. And when I'm not at home or running about with the kids, I
A story or
working in the community through Delta Sigma Theta. I work professionally at a financial firm in Philadelphia in technology. And I enjoy lots of other community service related events like Girl Scouts and 4 H and even autism related work. That I can do at this time in the community, but I plan to do more for autism. But anyway, I'm just a regular lady from Delaware, born, raised, and still live in Delaware. So yeah, so there is a such thing as a square from Delaware. So you're looking at you're looking at a live example. But I like traveling. I like dancing. I love movies, and I love sports. And yeah, that's a little bit about me.
awesome, awesome. Thank you, Danine. And if you're tuning in tonight, be sure to head on over to faithfulmoms.org and again share with someone. Danine's full story will be out first thing tomorrow morning, that you can read in more detail. And if you go over to Faithful Moms, you sign up to be on our email list. You will be able to get our stories when they come out every single week, and also you'll get a chance to read former stories and all the different series that we've highlighted through the organization so far. So, again, if you have not done so, make sure you head over there, sign up for our email list, and don't forget to invite someone. So, we're just going to jump right into it. And we're looking
Yes.
forward to what God has planned. So, Danine, um,
Wait, before we start,
oh,
our mission
wait,
statement.
hold on. I forgot two things. No, we're going to get this right. Our mission statement, yes, we are a community of moms that provides biblical, emotional support and content to bring hope, encouragement, and inspiration to women facing difficult seasons in life. And the most important part, we need to pray. So,
Hmm.
dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for this time. We thank you for allowing us to come together again. We thank you. Just for who you are in every one of our lives, God. And we thank you, especially this month, for this series, God, and these amazing, amazing, courageous women who thought it not robbery to come and share their stories of hope and encouragement, God, through facing this difficult season in their lives, God. So we ask that you be with us, God. We ask that you be with everyone who's listening, God, that this might be a beacon of hope, a form of encouragement, God, and a testimony to those who need strength during these seasons in their life, God. And we ask that someone is touched, someone is blessed, someone is encouraged, someone is turned to you, oh God, through this story. We ask that you be with our technology. Allow there to be nothing missed during this conversation, and we will be mindful to give you the glory, the honor, and the praise. In Jesus Christ's name we pray. Amen. Amen.
Amen.
Amen.
So, do you want me to read the mission statement? I never get to do these things. Or
You
did
can
you
do
read
it.
it already?
You can read it again.
Did
Not
you
to
do
go
it
back.
already?
I did. But
Oh,
you
never mind. What was
all
I?
right.
I was doing my technology stuff. I
I
wasn't
know.
listening.
That's look, but you keep me on point, so I appreciate that. Uh,
Faithfieldmoms.org. There.
there you go. There you go. But let's jump right into it, Danine. We want to get started on your story, and we want to talk to you about your how you would define abuse and how you speak to um, the different ways that it shows up and the different ways that it manifests.
Uh, well, I mean, there are many different kinds of abuse: physical, mental, sexual, verbal. Um, so there are several categories, but I think that one way to really think about it is that no matter which of those categories it is, it's someone's violating you um,
Yeah.
in a
Either
way.
way, yeah.
Yeah. So, a violation, it, whether it's physical or verbal, is how I would think of abuse.
Okay. Okay. And talk to how it specifically manifested in your story and however you feel comfortable.
Sure. So in my story, it's a little different. My abuse happened during my marriage, and to be quite honest, I didn't recognize some parts of it as abuse.
Hmm.
Most of it, through the beginning, was verbal, um,
Okay.
verbal abuse, which led to arguments. So I chalked it all up to arguments. Um, I really wasn't, or didn't fully understand that even that was abuse, because it was based on the type of language that was being used towards me, the words that were being used, um, and even hand gestures
Hmm.
also fall into certain categories of abuse. And I didn't learn that until,
Okay.
and I'm sure we'll get into it a little further in the story, until I had counseling after physical abuse. So in counseling, they really did dig deep and talk about what abuse is. Like if you're riding in the car and the person is arguing with you or calling you names and bangs on the steering wheel, that banging on the steering wheel is
Wow.
also considered abuse, because
Wow.
it is taking the place of you, but they're so mad that they're banging on the steering wheel. So your brain um, interprets it as if you were the one getting hit, but it was really the steering wheel. I had no idea that that
Mm.
was a thing. So I learned that in counseling. So there were
Okay.
things that were happening in my marriage that I didn't even know that it was considered abuse. Um, but yeah, so it manifested early on verbally, using just foul words that I just can't even repeat and say.
Hmm.
And some of the foul words were even spoken to me in front of other people, in front of the person's family. So even that is also considered abuse when you do it in a semi-public setting. Um, so that was the beginning, and that's how it started.
Okay. Okay. Wow. And it's interesting something that you said there, um, about how you didn't know in the beginning that those things were abuse. And so how did you, I know you said like you like counseling and everything helped you to realize that some of those things were forms of abuse, but how did that help you in terms of kind of like um I guess the best way to put, like, you could feel something was off about the interaction and everything. So how did it kind of help you to learn how to trust your gut in that manner?
I don't know that I trusted my gut. I mean, I
Hmm.
knew that it was, I chalked it up to the person being a jerk. Like, I'm like, you're really being a jerk. I, that's kind of how I categorized it. Just,
I don't mean to
you're
laugh,
being a
but
jerk. Your
yeah,
your actions are being a jerk, not you're being an abuser or you're being abusive.
right.
I didn't even categorize it
Okay.
as abuse, which I bet lots of women do, or people that are victims of abuse do. I just chalked it up to, you're being a jerk, and this is how I'm going to respond to a jerk. Is I'm going to shut down. I'm not going to talk to you.
Hmm.
Um, like, you don't exist, because I can't deal with what you're bringing and how you're talking to me. Um,
Hmm.
and so
Did you chalk any of it to his military background?
no,
No.
no, because uh, I don't think that your occupation has anything specific to do with your choices and how you treat other people.
Other people.
So no, I did not. I chalked it up to uh, really, to be honest, I thought that the individual was just refusing to be mature, to be a mature adult, and that I was confronting the immature behavior. And so I thought it's my fault because this person is mad. because I'm confronting immature behavior, so it's going to lead to arguments, and that these are arguments.
Mhm.
I never even said that or told myself that it was abuse. It was a doctor that told me that what was happening is considered verbal abuse. So in
Okay.
my mind, I didn't even categorize any of the behavior as abuse. I categorize it as a person being immature, not wanting to adult, not wanting to be held accountable, and just being a complete rude, inconsiderate, disrespectful jerk.
Jerk.
That's it.
Right.
That's how I boxed it up.
Right. Wow.
Yeah.
And so at the time that this is all happening, you're also you had one of your children or both of your children at that time?
Well, so the verbal abuse started before I had my first child. And like I
Okay.
said, I didn't even really call it, I didn't even think it was abuse. So I'm just going along like, okay, this will work out. This will, this is just a growing pain. Two very, very, not very old, but two older adults got
Mhm.
married after living for quite a long time as single adults. And,
Mm.
sometimes we tell people don't do this too young. Well, sometimes those are the ones that work out so well because they're growing together. But when you've lived as an adult
Wow.
for a long time by yourself, you have your way. And I think that I decided or categorize it is that we're having a difficult time finding our way
Okay.
because we've had our own personal way for so long. That's how I categorized what was taking place. So in my mind, I thought it's gonna blow over. It'll work out.
Mhm.
But what happened was I did have a child, and um, uh, around 15 months, 15-month, no, I'm sorry, our 18-month baby visit, um, we learned that our child was autistic. So the 18-month checkup visit.
Okay.
So just before 2 years old, really, we got a very shocking diagnosis that was
Mhm.
hard to deal with. However, it was one of those things that the doctor just kept throwing things at me, saying, you need to do this, 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 and this immediately. Um, so there really wasn't time to just be still and just settle in with understanding that there was an autism diagnosis. There was really, I did it mostly by myself, but there was me taking our child to the doctors, getting a bunch of evaluations, filling out giant books of paperwork to get services started because my doctor said there's no time to waste. Early intervention is your best friend, and I
Mhm.
want to be able to get him services the moment he turns 2 years old because in the state of Delaware you can get services at 2 years old. So I had 6 months. I'm like, all right, got it,
Yeah.
on it.
Right.
That added a significant amount of stress in our relationship because I was 100% focused on my child. I mean, I just was.
Yeah.
I don't know that I would have done anything differently. It was difficult. I was learning, and I wanted to make sure that I did everything that professionals were telling me was best to do for him, and that's what I did. That put a strain on marriage. It also put a strain because we're also for the first time experiencing autism. We didn't know what any of this was before, but now we have
Mhm.
a name for everything. We now know what stimming is. We
Yeah.
now know what nonverbal means. Like we're learning things as we're trying to live, as we're trying to coexist friendly, and it just wasn't working well. Um, but the reason that I have a story and that you've invited me here is because there was an evening where um, the individual spanked our son because he was stimming and it was bedtime. And I was in a different room studying because I'm always doing something. So it was, getting late at night. I went to the next bedroom, and we had converted into a den. And I'm studying and doing some work, and I could hear it, like a whacking sound. And I had the TV on. I had a computer on my lap. I was doing work, and I turned everything down, and I could hear it again, whacking, whacking, whacking. Go to bed. So I jumped up, ran into the bedroom, and he was beating our child, saying he needs to go to bed. But he had gotten frustrated because he was stimming.
Could you
So,
explain stimming for
yes,
this non, you
stimming,
know?
That's a
for
good
those
idea.
of you who may or may not have experience with autism or neurodivergence, stimming comes in multiple forms, but it could be a person tapping their knee, tapping a pencil, humming, uh, um, shaking their hands,
Yeah.
repeated shaking,
Okay.
or
Yeah.
Okay.
repeated shaking and humming all at the same time.
Yeah.
Um,
Mhm.
so it comes in many forms.
Hmm.
Some people stim with, I don't even know if I have one of those little rubber bracelets that we all have some somewhere
Mhm.
that for
Hmm.
some walk we did or whatever.
Mhm.
But some people stim and fidget with those.
My daughter
Um,
gallops. She gallops.
Mhm.
Gallup, jumping,
Okay.
jumping,
Yep.
So the child was
clapping.
displaying this
So
behavior.
yeah, my son, he still does this. He's 11. So
Hmm.
I love me
my
some
son
AJ. I just side
stims.
note.
He flaps his hands, and
Yeah.
he jumps his body, just constantly does this, and he
Hmm.
hums. So you're gonna
Yeah.
see him constantly do that. Um, but by this time we had learned that that's what he does. We didn't know everything about it
Right.
at that point in time, but we knew that he can't help it. Doctor, we already knew that he can't help it, and it's called stimming. We had already learned that, and he can't help it. Like, this is what he does. So I was through the roof mad. I'm not gonna lie to you. I was steaming mad that you would spank him for something he cannot control, which led to an altercation. So I was asked,
Yeah.
um, oh yeah. So I was asked to leave the room, and I said, I'm not leaving the room. I said, if you need to check out, you know, check out. Tell me, hey, I've had too much. I need a break.
Right.
But
Yeah.
he was so mad in a way that I'd never seen before that he told me to get out of the room. And if I didn't get out of the room, he was going to put me out of the room. I was like, you got to put me out of the room because I'm coming to get my son, and we're going to go in the other room. You can be upset, but if you need quiet, we're going to go in the other room because I'm not going to force him to try and stop stimming. So I came in the room,
Yeah.
and he was not pleased. He tried to push me out of the room, and we had a literal altercation in the door frame to the bedroom. What happened was that he took his hands grabbing the door and basically was slamming the door repeatedly on me while I was in the door frame because I had a foot in the door frame and a body, and I was not leaving until I got my son, who was sitting on the bed, still stimming. Um, So, because of the repeated banging of the door, and I couldn't get past, um, I swung and hit him across the nose. And that is the only thing that stopped him with the door because he was I don't even think he realizes what he was doing, honestly. I think he was out of his mind at that moment. I believe that he was just doing it. Like, I'm going to get her out this room if it's the last thing I do. And that's what I'm doing. I don't even think that he realized that he had kind of gone into crazy world a little bit
Okay.
until I hit him and he like snapped and the door stopped moving. I walked in, grabbed my son. And at this point now, he's elevated. I'm talking madder than junkyard dog. I don't want to say the kind of sayings my father used to say, but just
Mm,
steaming mad, hot as fish grease, as you would say.
mm.
He was mad. So he said, "Oh, you want to hit me? You want to hit me? I'm calling the police on you." By this point, I had, victory, got my baby. I was like, "I don't care who you call. I don't really care what you do." Went into the den, shut the door, stayed in the den with my child. And I, at that point, I was really focused on my son saying it's okay if you stim. Like I had moved on. It's okay. It's okay if you stim because the doctors told us that that makes him feel good.
Yeah,
So it's soothing. Stimming is soothing to autistics.
right,
So, but he actually did call the police. So they came.
right.
Police came. He was downstairs. He greeted them, let them in. He told them some story because I really couldn't hear him or them.
Hmm.
And the next thing I heard was the police calling up to me, asking me, "Mrs. Romero, do you mind if I come up and talk to you?" I said, "I certainly do not." And they came up and they said, "Can you tell us what happened?" I said, "Sure." Told them the exact story you just heard. I have that story memorized like it was
Hmm.
yesterday. And they said, "You mind if we look at your son?" I said, "No, I don't mind." So they looked at him and they were like, "It looks okay." Um, they were like, "Do you have somebody you can call?" And I'm thinking, for what? Like, I'm like, if you're asking me if I hit him, I told you I did. Like, I'm not denying my part in this. He was like, "No, ma'am. We need to touch you." And I'm waiting. The female officer came upstairs and they were like, "Do you mind if we touch you?" And I was like, No. They were like, "We need to look at your head." So I was thinking, okay. I'm like, my head feels fine. I felt fine, adrenaline, but I felt fine.
Mm.
Um, they touched me and I almost screamed bloody murder.
Oh, wow.
My ear had severed from my head.
My goodness.
They could see the blood running down my neck. I had no
But
idea.
you, yeah, yeah. You said it was an adrenaline reaction.
I had
So.
no idea. I didn't even
You're
notice.
protecting your baby.
I
Mm,
noticed when they touched me, but I had no idea prior to
wow.
that.
Mm,
So at
mm,
that moment, they examined me from top to bottom. On the side that I told them where the door hit me, they took pictures of bruises and they said they had to take me to the hospital because I could have been concussed. So they they basically said either you call someone to come stay with your son or we have to take him. So
Mhm.
I called my mom. She came, um, and then I went to the hospital, and then um, the hospital has an area for domestic violence, which I didn't even know. So there's like an
Okay.
area there. I had to meet with all these special people, and then I
Right.
also had to get my ear stitched back on. Um, that that's pretty painful, by the way.
You've
Um,
had stitches, so I can imagine.
yeah, I mean stitches on your arm, no big deal.
You've had
Stitches
stitches in your
In your
your
face,
ear.
ear,
Yeah. Jesus.
your
it was
face, that
the
whole
the
area.
doctor was so nervous that they didn't even do a good job. My
Mm.
my primary care physician, when he took the stitches out, he was like, "Who did this? Like, this is awful." And I was like, she
Mm,
was so nervous when she was stitching. Like, she was nervous. She knew it was gonna hurt as much numbing that they tried to give me. She was like, "It's just a
Mhm.
sensitive area. There's just no
area.
way it's not gonna hurt you."
Mm,
And I was
Wow.
like, "Okay, just suck it up. I'm gonna just suck it up and do it." And I did, but it actually ruined my ear. So my ear actually grew and grew this big giant ball behind my ear. And I had to schedule a surgery that was months later. So if you can imagine, it was just awful. It was embarrassing. I still had to work.
Yeah.
I
That's
would try
a.
to wear my hair so you couldn't see it.
Mm.
So it was
That's a lot
pretty
to experience.
bad.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was. That was it. I mean, that was the physical abuse that I endured.
Okay. There's something that stuck out to me when you were talking, and it was about the specific kind of like the culminating circumstances of that situation. And
Mhm.
so I kind of want to ask you, what kind of advice, because it seems like from what you were saying he was having a hard time, or there was a issue with understanding, stemming with understanding the needs of a child with with a diagnosis. So how would you speak to parents or give them advice on kind of like processing and handling like difficult information like that? Because it's like, everybody reacts in their own way, but it's inevitable we're going to get, or we have gotten, um unfavorable news. So
Mhm.
speak to that, about just about handling, like, something like that, like not understanding completely, but having to handle that news, like even just learning that your child has autism, that your child is stimming, different things
Yeah.
like that.
You know, Shira, I don't mean to sound crass,
No,
but
not at all.
I think that a couple that is truly in love and engaged will be fine, because it's okay to get news. It's okay to
Mm,
have unexpected things pop up. All of those things are okay. What's not, it's not okay to withdraw. What I can tell you is that there are studies that show that men who have children with autism have reported that they felt like they were on an island.
mm,
So I read a lot about autism in the beginning. I read a lot. I still read a lot about autism. Um, but don't withdraw. Don't
okay.
let one spouse do everything. Take a day off and come to some of the appointments, or
Mm,
the therapies. I'm not saying that he didn't come to anything. He did. He came to feeding therapy some because it was in the afternoon. But I mean, in the very beginning, when we were having people do all of these evaluations, like I did it all by myself, unless my mother was there, which thankfully, for the most part, she was, because it was like during the middle of the day, and I wasn't
right.
always able to take the day off. And
Was that like an
I took most of
abandonment?
them off though, but you know,
Yeah.
um, just be engaged, because the more you learn, the more you are comfortable with managing autism, Down syndrome, whatever it is. It could be, whatever it is, and it may not even be a medical diagnosis, but it could just be some unexpected news.
Right.
But stay in the partnership. Stay in the partnership. Be engaged. Ask what you can do. If you're not good at one thing, but the other person is, do the thing you're good at.
Right.
That would be my best advice, because to me,
Yeah.
autism isn't devastating. It's a diagnosis. You just have to learn. Just keep both feet in, and
Yeah.
stick together, and don't withdraw. But what I think is that I was going to all the appointments, and I was absorbing all of the information from the therapists and the doctors and everyone. So I was getting pretty comfortable with everything I was learning, and had a
Yeah.
good expectation. But the other person just wasn't as engaged. And I'm not necessarily throwing fault, but I'm just saying that's what helps you learn about it. That's what helps you get through these difficult times. Like,
Right.
sometimes you have to shut down self and say, you know what, I might miss a day of work, but this is important. Or my
Absolutely.
family needs me. I'll find another way to do whatever else I'm doing.
Absolutely.
So that's my advice.
Absolutely.
Stay engaged.
And we know that God continues to help us,
Right.
with staying engaged and helping us get through those moments. And He's given us His word, and He's given us guidance,
Mhm,
even in every difficult situation that we face.
mhm.
And so pertaining to the abuse, um, how were you able to, or what were your thoughts on biblical guidance as to how to handle this situation, and kind of this direction that your life has taken?
Um, I prayed all the time. Um,
Yeah.
and I would say that through this particular life challenge, I stuck close to Matthew 19:26, and but
Mhm.
I would just remind myself, with God, all things are possible. With
Yeah.
God, all things, wherever, whatever we're doing, wherever we're going, all things are possible. Um, I was missing work. I wasn't
Mm.
able to do my best work. And I mean, anybody that knows me knows that, I come with the best work I can come with. Like, I'm like one of those people at work, like, no, it's not right. It has to be right. We got to do really good.
Mm.
I try to turn in really good work all the time.
Mhm.
I couldn't even come close to turning in really good work all the time. So,
Mm.
um, for me, I felt like the more I kept my mind on God and just throwing all my troubles to Him to work it out,
Mhm.
the more He worked it out. Like, I always say that He's in the details. He cares about your details.
Always.
He cares about
Yes.
all
Mhm.
those little details that
Always.
you wouldn't think to tell Him. And we can talk to our best girlfriend, we can talk to our buddy and tell them everything. But if you talk to God the same way you talk to people, then He's going to show up. And for me, He really did. He, at work,
Wow.
I had a work buddy that just covered me, told him everything. I told him everything. I said, listen, come here. I got to tell you something. And he covered me at work, period,
Mm.
hands down. What do you need me to do? I can't think. I can't even talk today. I can't even talk.
Right.
Or I'm sitting
Wow.
in meetings and I'm about to cry.
Wow.
Just straight covered me, just did my work for me to get me through. Like, I got it. Don't worry about it.
Mm.
So, many people can't say that, but I mean, I had good people, and I only told one person at work, like, every
Mm.
detail. And and the guy was like, "That's all you need. This is the person you need. He's got you, and we'll get through your work and the project. It'll be fine. Don't worry about it."
Right.
And that
Um,
that speaks so much to God being in the details, you
mhm.
know,
Right.
and how
Put the
how
words
he
out my
just
mouth, sure.
yeah, and he
It's
just
in the details.
yeah, he covers
Mhm.
and he covers those things that we're not even thinking about,
Mhm.
and talk a little bit more to that, about him
Mhm.
being in the details and his provision during the abuse, and subsequently you and your partner got divorced,
Mhm.
and how
Yeah,
God just kind of worked those things, like he was just there working and working things out.
he was. I mean, well, I do want to say that, um, I'm gonna take just a small step back, because there are some
Sure.
people that may be in relationships and are experiencing some type of abuse, and
Hmm.
I do want to make sure that you know that I went through it. Like, it was hard, it was embarrassing, it was isolating and lonely. Like, your friends are your friends, but your friends aren't there. You know, they don't.
Yeah.
Nobody's
Wow.
coming over saying, "How you doing?" Absolutely not. Like, it just doesn't happen. Um, People at church, they're cordial, but like, nobody's really coming to check on you. Nobody's really there, except for for me, my very close family. My mother and my sister were there, but any other relationships, they get kind of cold and they're kind of distant. Um, so you're going to go through embarrassment, you're going to go through fear, you're going to go through just loneliness, or wondering if you could have done something different or better. Those are all real things that are going to happen, but go through those things. Don't get stuck
Hmm.
in any of those things. Just
Mhm.
go
Yeah.
through it. That's my
Yeah.
best advice, because I took him back. Like, he begged to come back. Like, this went in the state of Delaware. The state brings charges against you. I didn't actually bring charges against him.
Okay.
If he hadn't called the cops, if he hadn't called,
Bad call. Mhm.
no, that would have never happened.
Mhm.
Okay.
There would have been no, you have to go to the hospital, no, some stranger taking pictures of my body, like none
Wow.
of that would have
Yeah.
happened if he hadn't called, because I wouldn't have called,
And I
right?
know
The,
as a
the
former
state
member
of
of the
Delaware,
military, that's a thing too. If you get in a charge like that in the military, that's a significant thing for
it
us.
is, but I didn't cause that part of it,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
So
I
I just was
understand.
like, so now it's snowballing, and it's the state
Mhm.
against this person, not me. So he had to go through all of that, and the state asked me questions, and I swore to tell the truth and did what I did, but it wasn't my name isn't on that. Like, I was the victim, and that's it. So, but I say all that to say is that in real life, these things happen, and I let him come back. I let him come back to the home. So
Mm.
that's how Alana got here. So that's how I got a daughter. I mean, I let him
Wonderful
And that's
addition.
not and that's not an uncommon
Wonderful
that
story.
addition.
uncommon. So, and I
That's
Yeah.
say
true. That's
that
not uncommon.
for moms to know that, you know, make decisions that are best for you and that will keep you safe. And do not worry about the judgment of what you've done or what, the outcome of your choices are. Just do what's best to keep yourself and your children safe. So, the verbal abuse continued, but ultimately he left us. He just rolled.
Okay.
Excuse me. So then I got divorced. So I didn't just randomly file for divorce. I mean, he
Mhm.
rolled. So I was like, okay, well, we're moving on then. And this is when this is just another example of God being truly in the details, because at this point I'm learning a lot about autism. I'm really rolling now.
Wow.
And I'm like, oh, I want my son to be in the best programs. I want him to have the best school situation. Let's move. And I
Yeah.
had toured a bunch of schools. I found the place we wanted to be, found a house like in a day. The
Wow.
house
Okay.
had an offer on the table. You hear me? There
Mhm.
was
Mm-hmm.
an offer on the table. I wrote a letter, said
Look
a
at God.
prayer, and was like, Lord, we need this house because it's in this district. This is where
And
we need to
it's
be.
with that school.
And it's in this price range, and that works well with my pockets. And don't you know, the owner of the house selected us because of my letter that I wrote
Look
him.
at God.
My
Look
God.
at God.
Nothing but. Nothing
I
but.
know. So out of the blue, we're moving. I'm like, oh, let's go. So we move, and like then my son literally got the best teachers I think I've ever met in autism programming, and he
Mm.
still has, like, from one grade to the next, just amazing people.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
So he was
Awesome.
even in the details there. It was to the point where the school that he was supposed to go to, they were like, we don't like this for him. We're going to create an autism based classroom at this other school, and the experience is going to be better. And let's go tour
Mhm.
that school. Come on, let's go. Because I had my heart set on the one school that I toured, even
Yeah.
better. So, God, they always say, don't try to out imagine God. Like, you just can't, right?
Yeah.
That's
So
it.
there was
Hands
an
down. Like no
you just can't.
contest. No
So the
contest.
options were even better. So he was still in the details. So while
Mm.
I'm going through this, I'm now going through a divorce. I got a surgery on my ear.
Mhm.
I went back to school to get a terminal degree. I moved. And what else happened? Oh, and I was fighting a custody battle, all in a short window of time, all within two
Wow.
years. And
Wow.
all of my requests that I petitioned God for came back to me
I
as
see it.
requested or better. Um,
Wow.
and I said, listen, I just want to do the right thing. I want to raise my kids well.
Mhm.
And, I don't care as much about myself, but I can tell you that I am 1,000% better than I was. Like, just smile more, just happier. Um, and I don't worry as much. I mean, you worry about your kids, like little, regular worry, but not the bad kind of worry. Like, But yeah, so I mean, I only worry like, oh, I hope you have a good day at school today. I hope the teachers keep bullies away from my kid. That's about as much as I worry nowadays. But I am happy, and I chalk it up to not being afraid to move on. Because I did have a fear at one point in time that I was disappointing God, by filing for divorce, and that is not His intention, and that it took me a while to be okay, with that decision. And I did a lot of counseling, and some with strangers, and some with families and my pastors at my church. But go to counseling. I would tell any mom, experiencing anything close to anything that is abuse, to go to counseling. I actually recommend going to strangers. Um, find a trusted professional to give you a good recommendation, because there's
Hmm.
something different about when you don't know the person, how you really let it rip and you just tell them everything.
Well, you have
Uh,
nothing to lose, right? Who they
you
gonna
have
tell?
nothing to lose, and they don't have any. They're not invested at all.
Right. Who are
They
they
don't
gonna
know the
tell?
other person. They're just there to help you
To
through the
listen.
situation.
Hmm.
And
Unbiased.
yeah, I found those sessions to be the most helpful through the process. But then, it doesn't mean to, ignore your pastor, or those close to you that are also going to be looking out for you. I still did those
Right.
counseling sessions as well. I didn't disregard them at all. And I think my sister basically told me, don't worry about it. You did not disappoint God,
Mm.
so He broke a covenant. You're free, and just I just had to remember that, God is not mad at me.
Hmm.
Yeah.
To get my head wrapped around that.
Hmm.
Absolutely. And even in the vein of counseling, like how much did that help with the trauma and just really kind of like giving you a lot more, I don't know if you would use the word peace or just settling on you or just helping you with, with dealing with that. But counseling is something, counseling and therapy is something that we all know is still just a little bit taboo, just a little too taboo
Mhm,
in our communities and stuff.
mhm,
So, like, speak a little bit more to that because that's something that, especially in this community, we're encouraging people like, don't feel like that's something that is not available to you and that's not something that you should take full advantage of because it has a whirlwind of positive effects and it's not what we hear from before like oh it goes against God or anything like that, but it
mhm.
helps you truly in your
It
healing.
does.
So speak a little
Well,
more
I
to
mean,
that.
if you really know and love God, the word is wrapped around counseling.
Mm,
He's perpetually counseling us. So there's no way that he could
mm-hmm.
be upset if we seek counseling.
Wonderful
That's not his
counselor. Right.
design. Yeah, that's not even close to his
Got that
design.
right.
What
Wonderful
he
counselor.
may want you to do is pray, and
Yeah.
ask his guidance on how to select the right person for you.
Amen.
Um, for me, again, God was in the details. I think that I'm just blessed. Like, like sometimes
You are blessed.
I'm like, God, are you for real? Like
Beyond
sometimes
measure.
I'm like,
Beyond
you
measure.
just keep going and keep going. Like my primary care physician was a Christian man,
Mm-hmm.
and he's since retired, but he's a Christian. When he took out my stitches, he's whispering, "I want you to go see a friend of mine." Like he's back there. He's really mad too. He's like, "This makes me so mad." So he's getting the stitches out, and he's like, "I want you to go see a friend of mine." And I'm like, "Okay." And he said he's a counselor. He gets one stitch out, he puts it in the big, B. He's a Christian man. I told him you're coming. I said that. Okay. So God's working it out before I even have a chance sometimes to come and
Is it? Yeah.
pray about it to help me. And
Yeah.
I went to see this counselor. He was part of the medical staff. And I saw him for 6 sessions and he released me. He was like, ma'am, he said, for someone to go through a trauma, he was like, actually what you experience, like once your head is banged and um, disturbed, destroyed, in any fashion, once it's severed, once that happens, that's a trauma. He was like, period, done. He's like, but for someone who's experienced this trauma, he was like, you're awfully sound. And after 6 weeks, he was like, I'm going to go ahead and release you. You have a sound mind. He said, I'm not saying that you don't need counseling or maybe still at your church or that you don't want to stay connected. He said, but I'm not concerned that 1, you would hurt yourself, or 2, that you would make bad decisions.
Okay.
And that was one that stuck with me. And I was like, oh, okay. And he was like, you're taking care of your children. You told me so many wonderful things about your kids. He was like, people that I have concern with or that I keep seeing are people that can't walk me through their day, a day in the life, that don't show me that they can make sound decisions. And he was like, I don't have any of those concerns with you. So that's what you want to get to. You want to be counseled, and you want to make sure that you have a sound mind. You want to make sure that you make safe and good decisions. If you keep making decisions that lead you back into bad things, then you're not there yet. You don't yet have that sound mind.
And it's recognition. It's recognizing the patterns that lead you to those bad choices. Right.
And that's what the counseling will help you see
and highlight for you, so that you can benefit from that hedge of protection that all of us have, being children of God.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I don't know. I think I just my biggest,
or you're just plain ornery. No.
Right. But my biggest message is seek counsel, seek the good kind, not just blabbing with your friends and things like that. That's not counsel. I mean, seek counselors that have credentials.
Yeah.
Right. That know what they're doing.
And we have a help resources on our website for those. And one thing, if you've been watching us, that is one thing that Tanya has pushed. It's counseling and therapy. And we had at our retreat, we had how many, Shara? Was 4 or 5? Wonderful.
Yeah, five, 6 maybe.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Absolutely. That's definitely.
So go to this website, ask me. I know counselors. Our
resources.
Yeah. And if someone's listening and I'm a stranger to that person, but they feel comfortable reaching out to me, I am perfectly fine with that as well. Like I said, sometimes it's easier to talk to someone you don't know. That
has no skin in the game.
That was so helpful. I also was required, I should say. I was required to go to a counselor through the custody process. That's a requirement by the state. Don't you know, God picks up perfect older lady, right? So you get this big long paper. It's like a scroll. They're like, here, go pick somebody. You got to pick one of these people who have been approved. And I'm like, great. I'm like, okay. So I'm
how am I
looking
supposed to do that?
I don't know any of these people.
Right.
I picked this lady, and she was like, oh, I was going to stop doing this. I have been doing it for so many years, but I guess I'll continue. I'll do maybe another year. But
wow.
Look at God.
For you. And she was this sweet lady that had been doing it for years and knew her stuff in her home and was sweet as pie. And she shared so much information about abuse that I did not know, so that I could even recognize it. So just trust the process.
Trust God.
Trust the process. Trust God.
Replace that fear with faith.
And know that it is lonely. It is scary. It is embarrassing. People look at you. They know your husband, he's gone. Like, yeah, okay. So, some people thought that he was funny, he's hilarious, whatever. I'm like, yeah, okay.
But you ain't got to live with him.
right? I'm like, yeah,
You live
he's
with
some
them.
things,
Yeah.
um, and there were some other circumstances that surrounded these events, but for me, I think I did the the best thing that I should have done for
Yeah,
myself and my children.
Absolutely, hands down.
absolutely.
No
Yeah,
question. No question,
yeah.
Ellis. No question about it.
Absolutely. Wow. Well,
There
Danine.
was
Oh, go
Uh,
ahead.
I was going to say there was one question, but I
Yes.
think that you did answer it, and it was centered around stimming, and
Oh,
whether it was a calming effect or when over stimulated or when excited for
Yeah.
various reasons. But you addressed that,
okay,
and
yeah. Swimming, yes.
and
Yeah.
shout out to our other LS who is on the line has been commenting, Miss Jayla Hall Russell.
Hey,
Yeah.
Jayla. Yes.
Yeah.
So stimming, it is calming for autistics, and it feels good. And to be perfectly honest, we all stim. Everybody
Yeah. In
does.
Yes,
our own way.
true.
That's
Uh,
true.
Yeah, for
if
me,
you
That
chew
is very
gum
true.
and you're really good at cracking that gum, you stim. So, but we all
Hmm.
stim, but just not as much and not in as intense as
Yeah.
sometimes autistics can do it.
Mhm.
But it feels good to their nervous system. Their
Yeah.
body needs it. The input, especially the ones that jump, those that you see jumpers a lot, their
Hmm.
bodies just need that input,
Yeah.
and it can be annoying to someone who is neurotypical because our first instinct, and I still do it, sit down, stop moving, sit down.
Mhm.
Um, because we're not it's just not what we need to
Yeah.
do.
Yeah.
It's hard because you want to say stop that jumping, and then you're like, oh, I feel
Yeah.
bad. I just told him to stop jumping, but he needs to jump. So
Right.
Mhm.
Right.
uh, yeah, that's
Yeah.
stimming.
It's a learning process, and we continue to thank God that he knew who to give these amazing kiddos to.
Yes, absolutely.
So that
And one is my Girl Scout cookie hookup.
oh
Yeah.
my God.
So I'm just thankful right there. Look at God, right? Been blessed. Also,
True indeed.
Oh my
and,
goodness.
Francine and Micah Edwards, love you guys.
That's my
As you
sister
know,
and brother. Thank
yes,
you, Fran
they
and Micah.
past guests,
Awesome.
past guests,
Awesome.
and also our LS Lurleen Black
Hey,
has come on.
Lily.
But we do need to wrap
Awesome.
this up, Miss Shira.
Yes, yes, we do, because we want to be able to
Broadcast this.
rebroadcast this amazing story. Danine, I cannot thank you enough for coming and sharing your story, the
Mhm.
courage, the strength, and the boldness, to say what it is and what it ain't, and to give people that encouragement and that inspiration that yes, God can see you through even the most frightening details, even um the darkest times in your life. And truly,
Yeah.
I think that was the thought of the night, that God is in the details.
Mhm.
God is in the details. So thank you everyone for tuning in tonight. Thank you for your comments, for your questions. And please, we'll be back next week. So don't forget, and we encourage you to come back and tune in. And don't forget to invite someone, truly invite someone. Again, as we said before, Danine's story will be in full on our website first thing tomorrow morning. And for those who may be experiencing abuse, thank you, Markeisha. She did put up the domestic abuse hotline. So we look forward to you guys, and we look forward to another amazing story next week. We have Christina Clardy, another former guest coming, and we'll see you next week. Take care and have an amazing night, everybody. Bye.
Thank you.
God bless.
God bless.